Namaskar. My name is Rohini Panda and I am a student here at SIFAS. I'm learning Hindustani vocal under Guru Sonali, and today we are here to have a discussion with one of our alumni students, Trina Banerjee. So, yes, a short introduction. Trina is an alumni student, as I said. She's a student of Guru Sonali and she's learning Hindustani vocal. And she is currently pursuing her BA in music at Somerville College of Oxford University. She's also a recipient of the Visharad Award, and we're very glad to have her with us today. So, hi Trina, how are you doing?
Hi Rohini, thank you so much for the introduction. Just a quick thank you so much to SIFAS for letting me be here, and thank you to Guru Sonali for setting this up. I'm really happy to be here. Today I will be talking to you about two genres of music that are seemingly very different from each other. So I'm thinking of 1950s jazz and Hindustani classical music, but hopefully by the end of today's session you will see them the way that I do in my personal research and see them as more similar than they are different.
Okay, so first of all, before we get into that, I hear that you're learning both Hindustani and Western music at university. So do you think you could tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. At Oxford, in my course, we're actually doing music combined with a lot of different humanities subjects, such as psychology, anthropology, history, just to name a few. There's so many more. And how I bring Hindustani classical into it is I try to use examples of Hindustani classical music or Indian classical music, traditional music like that, to talk about how it is different from Western art music canons and how it can be used in an alternative way, or it be used for an alternative perspective on a lot of situations and prominent problems in music and musicology.
That sounds really interesting. Oh my god, okay. So let's go into the jazz versus Hindustani thing that you were mentioning earlier. You think you could tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So for starters, jazz music and Hindustani music, I think it sounds like it's worlds apart because jazz music originated in America and Hindustani music obviously originated in India. But I'll just start with a brief introduction to each of the genres. The form of music that I will be referring to today is actually Khayal style of music, which is one of many that Hindustani classical music has. So Hindustani classical music has a lot of different forms such as Dhrupad, Dhamar, Khayal, Thumri, etc. And currently, Khayal style of music is one of the most popular in vocal music. And this is very interesting because I think the word Khayal in Urdu actually means imagination. So the way that this kind of music and performance is presented often incorporates the imagination or the perception of the artist and the rag. So this plays very closely to the way that Hindustani classical music is portrayed. In a similar manner, jazz music also has a lot of improvisation. So already we can see that both of these art styles have a lot of spontaneity between them. So jazz music also has so many different genres like blues, Chicagoland, Dixieland, so many different kinds of things. And it's really interesting to see how they sort of play off of each other. And you know, I'll go more into the technical things a little bit later, but just for now, I think improvisation and spontaneity is what brings them together for me.
Okay. So do you think you could go into the specifics, like the technicalities, so that we can understand a bit more?
Of course. I'll be using three sort of main elements actually, to compare the two. But before I get into that, I just want to explain the scale notations of two songs that I'll be using today as examples.
Right.
For the blues one, I'll be using Blue Skies, which is popularized in 1958. And for the Hindustani classical example, I'll be using a traditional composition of Rag Madhukans. The reason why I chose these two examples in particular is because the scales that they both use are actually very similar. So for blues scale, there is a flattened third, which is the same as the Komal Gandhar in Rag Madhukans.
Right.
The blues scale also has a raised fifth, which in the pitch is the same as Tivra Madhyam in Rag Madhukans. And lastly, the blues scale also has a flattened seventh, which is the same as the Komal Nishad in Rag Madhukos. So all these vikrit or modified notes that are found in both of these scales are actually the same, which is why I find it very fascinating and I really loved doing research about it.
Okay. Do you think you could maybe demonstrate a bit of that for us?
Yeah, of course. So we're going to go into firstly the structure and the melody. So I will just show the structure of both of these songs. So for the Hindustani classical one, there are 2 stanzas. The first stanza is known as the sthai, the second is known as the antara in Rag Madhukos. For Blue Skies, there are a few more than 2 stanzas actually, but each of the stanzas I have demarcated with the letters A and B to show that each of the melodies that have the letter A are the same with different lyrics, and the ones that have B also have the same melody. So I will go right into demonstrating that.
Yeah, go for it.
And I hope it clarifies some things that I've been talking about. That was the traditional composition of Rag Madhukos, and I will just turn my tanvara off and I will show you now just the verses of Blue Skies. Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on. So that's just a little bit of what the song Blue Skies sounds like. Hopefully did it a bit of justice to both of them. But yeah.
Totally, yeah. They were really, I think it's really interesting how they can sound so different, and yet we know that the scales are basically the same. So yeah, tell us more. Like, I think you mentioned improvisation earlier.
Absolutely.
Think you could elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, like I was saying, spontaneity and improvisation are the core to both of these genres. in Hindustani classical music, the improvisation is usually done with a lot of rules and regulations of the khayal that we must follow. So we usually use the notes of the rag and try to elaborate the composition in a few different ways. So the first one is alap, for example, which is a slow improvisation. There's bol alap, where we use the lyrics of the composition and the notes of the rag to present the composition in a more different and kind of interesting way. And there's also sargam, where you use the swar or the notes of the rag and you kind of play around with the lay and the tal structure. That's always fun. And lastly, there's also tan. So I mean, obviously this is just a few different examples. So the tan is the technicality of the artist is sort of expressed through the tan, and it shows also the vocal flexibility, and it's usually the very challenging part of the khayal presentation and is often seen towards the end of the performance. In blues music, it's slightly similar but slightly different. So the similarity between the improvisation in both of them, in blues music they also use the lyrics to sort of show different melodies that work with the same lyrics. And the other thing that they use is called scatting. So that is the use of meaningless syllables. So it could be literally anything you want, badu, bada, anything that comes to your mind at the moment. And that is usually used to elaborate over the harmony or the chord progression. And when I say chord progression, I mean a pattern of chords that is repeated throughout the whole song. So again, I will try to give you a demonstration, and I'll explain, at least for the Hindustani classical ones, I'll explain them between each of the demonstrations.
Okay.
So these first two were the alap and the bol alap. So now I'll move on to the second two that I mentioned. So this one is the sargam. And then after this, we speed up and then do the tan.
Right.
Hopefully that sort of clarifies what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And again, I will just sorry. turn the tantra off and sort of go into the improvisation of Blue Skies. So I'll be trying to do a bit of scatting as well as changing the melody of the song.
Okay.
I never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going oh so right, noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love my hand they fly, blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on.
Yeah, that was so good. Oh my god.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was fascinating and also really, really beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm really glad that you enjoyed it, and it was really fun to talk to you about some of this research that I've done. Yeah, it was really fun to perform for you, and you've been such a lovely host.
No, our pleasure, our pleasure. Okay, so basically that's pretty much it. We've come to the end of this entire segment, and thank you so much for taking out the time. I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting, and I think as a Hindustani student, perhaps viewers at home might relate, but we study all this rag stuff and alaptan, we study this, but for jazz it's kind of, we just know bits of information from here and there, and this conversation really put everything into perspective and kind of almost made me appreciate both styles of music even more. You know, what makes it unique, what makes it similar, and just so interesting. So thank you for that.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I'd like to say is that it feels like there's this stereotype that you can't do two styles of music at once. You can't pursue two styles of music at once. And I think just based off of this discussion that we've been having for the past 10-15 minutes, it's kind of been so rich. It's been so rich and insightful and given us so much perspective that can't possibly be true. And you're doing it like right now in university. So yeah, you've completely broken the mold and this stereotype is like completely shattered. So yeah.
That is way too flattering, but thank you.
No, that's the truth, for like actually. So thank you so much for taking out the time.
Of course.
And yes, that's pretty much it for this episode. Thank you for staying with us all this while. For the next episode, Trina is going to be performing. She's going to be giving a demonstration of what the khayal we've been talking about really is, both vilambit and drut. So thank you so much and namaskar.